Hey, welcome back to Steve's Tesla. I think I've been waiting on this day for about 3 years now. I've just had the Tesla Powerwall 3 installed in the garage in my apartment. And I thought what I'd do is share with you the installation and the testing process, and also my initial impressions after having the Powerwall 3 operational now for only about 5 days. But I've got a few insights into how it's going to work longer term. I've had solar panels now for several years, and as the feed-in tariff is slowly reducing and potentially going negative in the future, I'm faced with a situation where my solar panels will actually start costing me money. So I've decided to go with a Tesla Powerwall 3 to capture that daytime electricity and use it during the evenings. Check out my other video on this channel justifying the cost of going ahead with a Tesla Powerwall 3. So I've engaged our local supplier, Sun People, who've been doing a great job for us over the years with our solar, to install the Powerwall 3. We did this in 2 stages. Prior to the delivery of the Powerwall 3, the wiring was put in place as it's a requirement for me to install the battery and the associated gateway in my garage, as the meter room in our apartment block is now full of solar inverters, and there is just no more room to install any further equipment. I also had a bit of additional cabling and conduit installed in my garage to tidy up the loose collection of extension cords I've been using over the years. Powerwall 3 requires a Wi-Fi connection for over-the-air software updates. My garage is underground and part of a large apartment complex. I found a simple way to do this was to get a Telstra cellular Wi-Fi connection and simply hang an aerial outside the building. Delivery day for the Powerwall 3 was in early November, as soon as the New South Wales rebate scheme had kicked in. This thing weighs over 130 kilograms and requires some substantial packaging. Tesla have come up with a renewable packaging solution that requires the packaging that's provided to be returned to Tesla for reuse.
So that's where
That was easier than expected. What do you think?
yeah, that wasn't too.
Back up.
Just hover around it, just so I can get a picture of the insides here.
Which one you felt? Equal. Yeah, I think it's this side. We're currently looking at your solar is producing about 4 kilowatts, touch over.
Yep.
Your house is taking just short of 3 kilowatts of that power.
Yep.
The rest is being diverted to the battery in the form of charge.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. Well,
Fully self-sufficient right now.
I'll go and turn that dryer off. But is the so what's the state of charge? Can you see that from the?
At present moment, 25%.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. So that's filling up at about 1 kilowatt at the moment. But I'll go and turn the dryer off, and that should divert more to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The Tesla Powerwall is part of an integrated system developed by Tesla. So it's a relatively straightforward process to add the Powerwall 3 to the same app that I use for the Tesla Model Y. So after pairing my phone and selecting the Powerwall 3 as an additional product, it comes up fully integrated within the Tesla app.
I think it's called Storm Watcher.
I do remember watching a video about that.
So essentially, if the Bureau of Meteorology detects that there's going to be a storm of a decent category coming, that may risk a blackout.
Right, you can charge up. Yeah.
Your battery will start to store power for the just in case, because you are fully backed up.
Sweet. Right, so it's configured so that the entire house is backed up, and I'm pretty sure in the app I can adjust the amount of reserve in the battery. So I can say it's got 13 kilowatt hours in there. So I can say use 10 on a regular basis, but save, like a minimum level. So there's always a minimum level there in case
I
there's a
think
blackout.
5% is the absolute lowest you can do. It physically won't let you go lower than 5%.
Yeah.
But 10 to 15% is the most common.
Okay.
Essentially, the main ideas is you don't want to stack anything against it. You don't want anything in the area of it. So there's a rule of 600 mil clearance.
Give it airflow, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they say 600 mil around the battery is what we call an exclusion zone. Is the idea. We really don't want to obstruct anything, and we don't want to put anything near it that's also flammable. So in the super unfortunate scenario, if it were to ever occur that this thing combusts, you don't want it to catch something else on fire and then have an easy path to spread.
Sure. So don't leave a can of petrol sitting there.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Even Tesla does all the software updates for you.
Yep.
It's that's why the internet connection is mandatory.
Yeah.
Because a part of their servicing is making sure it has the correct firmware.
Okay. So during the setup, you've actually linked it to that, have you? You have. Okay.
And it has an emergency internet connection built into it as well.
Oh.
So say that broke and it was out for a week, it will still be connected to their internet. So then Tesla can monitor it, but they will most likely contact you and be like, hey, what happened to your internet connection?
Okay.
Or they'll contact us, one or the other.
That's good to know. Great.
Yeah. Backup test, just to make sure that if the grid were to drop out, that your backup will actually kick on.
Oh, good. Okay, let's do it.
We'll definitely do that test.
All right, we're going to simulate a power shutdown.
So, to simulate a power shutdown, we want to switch off the grid, essentially.
Yep.
So this is our grid.
Yep.
Should be pretty close to instantaneous.
So there you go. Great.
And we're now running on backup.
Well, that's just fantastic. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Very good.
So
So I felt saw the lights flicker.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, for your case, if you want to isolate your backup circuit, just flick him off.
Right.
And then everything shuts off, which we can do.
Yeah. Okay.
Now everything off.
Everything off. Right. Okay. Well, that seems to be working.
Yeah.
Jolly good. But under normal circumstances, I shouldn't ever have to get into the gateway.
No, so this is just simulating a blackout.
Yeah.
So it's the same effects as if you were in a blackout. You're switching off this switch because this is your supply from the grid.
But at the moment, we're running on backup.
Completely on the battery.
Yep. Okay. Good. All right. We'll just power back on. Let's see what happens. Oh, look at that.
So there'll be like a 30-second delay where it'll test to make sure the grid is actually coming in consistently with good values, and then you'll hear a couple of clicks.
Oh, okay.
And then it'll go to back off your battery and back onto the grid. So right now you're still on your... So the AC isolator is in the same position it was on the Powerwall 2, it's just on the left-hand side. Right there, you toggled it earlier.
Yep.
The only difference is your DC isolator is just there. There's a little label just under it.
Okay.
To make sure it's known that that is the DC isolator just there.
Yep.
You flick him towards yourself, and it shuts off your solar, essentially. So you could keep your battery running, but just have the solar isolated.
Okay.
There's not really any scenario you would need to do that.
And you'd do that if there was a fault with a panel, you're replacing a panel or something, or you had to do something? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, that's good to know, but fantastic. Well, thank you both very much.
You're welcome.
Great job. Help. Good on you.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Great.
Your keys are just there.
Yep, that's
as well as your
fantastic.
Wi-Fi password.
So what have I learned after running the Powerwall 3 now for about 5 days? Firstly, my solar panel output varies significantly. They are rated at 6.5 kilowatts peak, but if I look at the data for the 7th of November, they barely got to 1 kilowatt of peak and produced about 4.6 kilowatt hours for the entire day. On the 8th of November, it was sunny, and they peaked at 5 kilowatts, generated 35.4 kilowatt hours. It was similar on the 9th of November and the 10th. The 11th of November was a cloudy day, and the solar panels peaked their output at about 2 kilowatts, generating 8.4 kilowatt hours for the day. The AGL Nightsaver EV plan that I'm on provides electricity for 31 cents per kilowatt hour during the day, and that drops to 8 cents per kilowatt hour from midnight to 6 a.m. I can charge my EV during that time, but of course AGL doesn't know what the load is, so I can top up the Powerwall at 8 cents per kilowatt hour if needed. The Powerwall backup reserve is set at 15%, so I can use 85% of the battery capacity for time-based control. This provides about 36 hours of running my household with minimal solar input and no grid utilization. So in an emergency situation where the power has been shut off, I've got
15% of the battery left. That would provide about 5.4 hours backing up the entire household if the Powerwall is already at its lowest point. These are just my initial impressions after running the Powerwall for about 5 days. I will put together a full cost-benefit analysis in maybe 6 months' time, when I've developed some historical data and I've got some information to share. Hey, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. G'day and welcome to Steve's Tesla. This is my channel dedicated to electric vehicles and renewable energy. Subscribe now and let's drive.